Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are connected and online with us. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to our creative workshop. My name is Sandra Correa, and I'm Technical Director of All Dance International. This workshop, or these workshops, are based on 20 workshops that we have designed specially for you in All Dance International, and that are going to be with us experts, part of our All Dance International staff, that are all aligned with our principles and our goals that will help you in this process of creative All Dance International choreographers. So these workshops are specially created to guide every one of you and to give a very clear line and contribute to your creative, competitive creations. Especially, I want to thank Maria Fernanda and All Dance International, our General Director, for developing and always giving us these tools and these guides to help dance and to give dance and dance industry and the teaching dance industry every time looking for strategies that will help our well-being and the growth of all this industry. So thank you very much, because thanks to all of these new things, we can keep on growing and keep on learning hand to hand with each other. All Dance International is, we look for creating and executing different methods that are going to help and guarantee that this process will be fulfilling for every one of the dancers, the choreographers, and everyone that's on stage with us. Our main objective of All Dance in this organization is mainly to help and grow the professionalization of dance and all the dance members of the world, to help and provide and develop all this creative work and creative workshops with that goal, providing knowledge, opportunities for this development in the dance industry and this organization. When we think creative and we think all this, we think originality, we think imagination, we think divergent thinking, we think creative thoughts. All of this, and actually all of this knowledge and knowledge in general, is going to be the fuel that's going to ignite all that creativity. So we bring to you the knowledge, we bring to you all the information that is actually going to help all of this creative process of every one of you, and that is going to make a huge impact and great difference on your creative choreography in All Dance International. Because when we have the correct information, when we have the correct guides, then that creative process is going to be it's going to be rich, and it's going to be aligned with your objectives. And obviously, one of the objectives is doing the best job possible and winning. So we're looking for having the equal opportunity to be a very just opportunity and environment that create a healthy, competitive environment for all the dancers in order to grow personally, professionally, and in dance in general, as we do as well every time we accompany these dancers, and we're here with you connected as well. Today, we start our first specific workshop. So we started the day before yesterday. If you couldn't accompany us, where we have it on our official YouTube channel, so you can go up and see it and watch it. That's our rules update, because here we're going to talk about more specific elements that we already saw on our rules update. So I do recommend you go and see our first workshop that talks about everything more in general and a lot of little details that are going to be very useful. Today, we're going to start with our jazz workshop, and we have every one of our categories, modalities, techniques, because we have over 20 different techniques, actually 24 different techniques, and over 40 different modalities. And we're going to be with some special judges that are going to be our special guests that are going to tell us a little bit more about these techniques, these modalities, and they're going to give us a special, let's say, guideline that's going to help us in our broaden our view of each one of these modalities, each one of these techniques, so our creative process can be very, very, let's say, fueled by all this information that will be that they will be sharing with us along this month and a half. So March until April 25th, we're going to be connected here on live, on Zoom, and on obviously on our YouTube channel, where you can come back and watch as many times as you can. So subscribe and follow. Now, to give the welcome, we are going to start with our first jazz. For this, I'm going to invite and give a warm welcome to one of our juries and part of our staff, a very important and fundamental part of this organization, all our juries and staff. And he has a long trajectory and loves dance and has a great respect for dance, for all the dancers and all the creative process as well. Follows and loves our all dance philosophy, as we all do that are connected here, and that's what brings us together and what actually glues the all dance family together. So I want to give a warm welcome to Luis Miguel. Welcome to our workshop for all dance creatives. Luis Miguel Tibocha with you.
Hey, Sandra. Hello, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for that introduction. For me, it's a true honor to be here, sharing with you guys all this information, all this sharing context, and I'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it as well. I think this is a very special place to grow, to share, to let's keep in common those great ideas that make dance together and make the dance become greater every time. I want to thank Maria Fernanda Castro. I want to thank All Dance International, because this kind of moments are not usual to have in every competition. So it's really special to have this and to make this contact between the judges, between the choreographers, and also between the students and everybody that shared this scenario. So for me, it's a true honor to be here. Thank you very much. And let's enjoy this creatives workshop that we're gonna have today. And we're gonna be talking about jazz, which is one of my favorite styles. So let's begin. All right.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. We have in jazz, we have jazz is our technique, and we have 6 different modalities in jazz. Luis Miguel is going to shed a little bit of light on what is the difference between them. How can I recognize if my jazz choreography is one or the other, and where is it going to have the best results in All Dance International? So let's start out with jazz, and I leave you with Luis Miguel Tibocha.
All right. Yes, jazz. We're gonna be talking a little bit about the jazz in general, which is a style that emphasizes body line and torso mobility. It is also continuous leg work and traditionally with the feet in parallel. Yeah, I'd like to stop here for a minute and just context everybody that jazz, when you talk about jazz, you're talking about parallel positions, you're talking about parallel feet, close passe, all the chasses, ball changes, and leg work using grand battements, développés. Everything that comes in parallel position, like most of the time, would be contextualized into the jazz technique. So starting there, we're gonna be very to the point, directly to the point, that if you are like in parallel, your fourth position in parallel, everything that comes into that context, it is most likely to become jazz technique. So I hope everybody just understand that a little bit. And additionally, to continue, additionally, it tends to exaggerate the torso and the shoulders movement. That with a little bit of, I don't say a little bit, I say a lot of expression, facial expression, and body line will complement this jazz technique. And let's see what jazz open comes in the next slide. So we're going to talk about jazz open. Jazz open on the organic code of All Dance International is characterized by the fusion of two or more styles of this technique. Let's say if you have like lyrical jazz or contemporary jazz fused in one single presentation, that's going to be jazz open. It's very important that you have to contain at least 30% of each style in case of fusion. Let's say if you have, for example, 90% of contemporary jazz and only 10% of another jazz style, you should be registered in contemporary jazz, not jazz open. In order to be in jazz open, you have to be 30% of each style fused in the same choreography. And how you can do it? You can do it two ways. First, by the jazz technique, and the second, by the jazz music, all right? So in the technique, it should be clear how you are making the difference between different jazz styles. Let's say modern jazz and contemporary jazz fused in a very fluent way, but you can recognize every time you see the choreography, you can recognize how those styles are separate but are merged in the same choreography. That's the first way. And the second way of let's say fuse those styles, it's in the music. So you have, for example, modern jazz, first part music, it's modern jazz, and then second part it's contemporary jazz. And musically, it makes sense to the audience, to the judges, and to the dancer who's performing that choreography in the moment. Then it's gonna be easier to understand the fusion of the dance. If your music is in the mix, the dance should be easier to recognize. Okay, so you can find lots of styles of jazz. Okay, there's a lot of subgenres that contains jazz, for example, Charleston, Afro jazz, rock and roll, and you can include them into the jazz fusion, okay, into the jazz open. It is not limited, but it is also specified on the organic code of the All Dance International. So if you have any doubt, you can go ahead and look it up on the Google, put it the All Dance organic code, and you have every specific subgenre that you'll have in the organic code of the All Dance International for the Jazz Open, okay? Let's continue. We're gonna have now the theatrical jazz. This is a very, very, very special jazz because it is one of the most, let's say, expressionally based jazz style. It is very, very influenced by the Broadway style, and you can recognize it because it has a musical theater into its technique. It's also very important to characterize this style, not only by the steps, but just by the costume and the energy that the dancer presents at the time, all right? It is energy, it is a gestuality that the dancer have to communicate a type of musical theater wise technique, all right? It's also using the posture and classic lines, as well as isolations accompanied by gestures and interpretation. In the jazz, in the theatrical jazz, the interpretation, it's really, really important. Let's say, let's stop here for a minute. Let's say interpretation, try to communicate the context that it's being danced in the moment. For example, if you are trying to represent a character, the energy and the gestuality of each characters has to be presented by the dancer, okay? It has to have the relationship between what you are presenting and what your character is on the, let's say, story that you're trying to present on your dance, okay? Let's say something very special here. On the theatrical jazz, you cannot have the playback, okay? Even if you are on using a lot of gestures or trying to express, you cannot have like the playback or your vocalization of the song you cannot be doing that because for that, it's another specific modality. And then you have to focus on what is dancing and is what interpretation, all right? It's predominant in the style in Broadway musicals. Jaco and styles such as the Bob Fusse's had a great influence of this modality. So you have two of the techniques, most important techniques here, which is Bob Fusse and Jaco. You can have like this direction, but it's not limited to it. So you can have really, really good interpretation of your theatrical jazz. It is really important to have these accessories if you wanted to. If you have like, let's say the hat, or if you have like another accessory in your costume, try to make it a part of the choreography, all right? If you have like the hat and you're dancing with your hat, it's really important that you just do not have it because it's pretty. You can use it as part of the choreography, and it will give you a lot more interpretation, and that is gonna keep you in modality a lot better. All right, let's continue with the lyrical jazz. Lyrical jazz, it's very special for me. I really like it. It's a style that combines the language of the classical ballet, but not its steps. All right, let's separate two different things, because lyrical uses the lines, uses the style, the harmonic, the softiness of the movement, the transitions, the soft transitions, and also the expression of the dancer, not only by the emotions of the dancer, but with the expression, the emotions of the singer, of the music, of the story that you're trying to communicate. And that is used by the classical ballet styled movement and the technique of the jazz, which is the parallel position that we talked a little bit earlier. We talked about the close passe, the sixth position, the ball changes, everything that comes in parallel, mixed with the ballet technique. It's gonna make your lyrical jazz a lot better and your movements a lot softer, which is going to transform into very good transitions and very good finishing of the movements and allonges and different kind of softy movements that characterize this lyrical jazz. It's very important that you use music that is like ballad kind of music, ballad-like music, which is like soft music, and it's very influenced by the lyrical and by what the artist is saying on its lyrical song. So you can create a story, so you can mix what the artist is saying in the music and what you're doing in your dancing. Let's say, for example, if the music is saying, when I look up, and then you're just simply looking up and doing these little details on the music into your choreography, it makes the choreography a lot better, because it's a concept. It is costume, music, and interpretation, the same concept of choreography, and it will keep you very, very good into the jazz lyrical modality, okay? This is very, very important to have in mind in order to present a really good lyrical jazz performance in the scenario, okay? Let's continue. We're gonna be talking about the Latin jazz. Latin jazz, it's a dance technique. The typical jazz style in this modality is distinguished for the traditional jazz by the cadence and the fusion of the Latin dance technique. For example, you can have jazz technique. We have been talking about it, so you have clear right now, which is parallel passes, chasses, soli chas, legs, everything. And in the other side, you have Latin rhythms, such as the mambo, the cha-cha, the song, the salsa, among other styles that you can mix it with the jazz technique and make the Latin jazz a lot better. If you have doubts in costume, you can use every fabric that is soft and it has like this flying movement. You can use the the jazz shoes, or you can use the jazz heels, but keep in mind that if you use the jazz heels, you have to be a very specific technique jazz dancer in order to keep that movement in the same energy as the Latin jazz, okay? Latin jazz has a lot to give because you can mix such a greater and wider kind of styles into the jazz. You can use you can really use the cadence, the hips, the shoulders, the spots, and a mixture with the jazz style. It has a great opportunity to give the dancer freedom of movement, okay? Because you are like technique-wise into the jazz, but you are also movement-wise programmed in the same choreography. So you can have really a wide and free range of motion in this modality. And well, it's very important to have like a beat, a song that has a beat, but also a song that allow you to have Latin rhythms into it, and a song that allows you to dance into the Latin rhythms, all right? So Latin jazz, I hope that this is very clear for you. And I hope that this explanation will give you like the tools to keep pushing this modality into the new levels, all right? Okay, let's continue with the contemporary jazz. This style of jazz combines the technique of jazz dance with elements of neoclassical and contemporary dance. It's really important that you're dancing jazz and contemporary jazz and neoclassical jazz and different kind of modalities and dances. Because when you're dancing in contemporary jazz, you're using the jazz technique with the influence of different other dances technique and make him jazz dance, okay? It's contemporary jazz, very useful. You can have Horton, you can have Graham, you can have flying low, you can have contraction and release. You can have all those elements of the contemporary dance, using them as transitions, using them as energy, as flowing, as precision movements, but keeping in mind that you are dancing jazz, having those parallel feet, the forward position preparation, those turns in the parallel. And every moment that you are stepping out of the jazz zone, you are trying to become another dance modality, right? So try to keep the energy of the jazz mixed with different other dance, different other dance modalities, all right? Such as contemporary, such as neoclassical, and that is it. What keeps you in the contemporary jazz modality is most of the time trying to be in the fluently motion, combining jazz using legs, jumps, turns, and leaps, but having them connected with floor contractions, expressions that are characterized in other dances, all right? So I hope this makes you, give you a clearer idea of what contemporary jazz is. And you can use floor as well as big jumps and turns. And the staccato of the music is really, really important. You can have the cut movements. You can have the stop movements. You can have those movements that are completely playing and that are connected with the music. So the other part of the contemporary jazz is the music that really give you the opportunity to explore something very strong in energy, right? Because when you're talking about lyrical jazz, which is like most of the time the very similar-ish modalities, because it's because the line in between both of them, it's really tiny, and it's such a small differences that makes the one of another, right? So when you're dancing, like let's say lyrical jazz, you're soft, you're allongé, you are trying to keep the classical position in your body. And when you're dancing contemporary jazz, you can go ahead and be a lot stronger, a lot more energized, and a lot of using this staccato that we were talking about it earlier. You can have these cut movements, the flooring. You can have a lot more flooring on the choreography. You can have these expressions of different, let's say, organical energy on your movement. See, let's wait. We're talking about lyrical. We're talking about this classical lines, but when you're dancing contemporary jazz, you can have this exploration of movement that is almost personal to each dancer, that you can have like very personal movements and exploration that it's inside the contemporary, inside the person. You can have it in the contemporary jazz while you can have it in the lyrical jazz, which is most expression, and then contemporary jazz is more about the organicity of the movement. All right. So the music, you can use music that uses a beat, but you can also use music that allow you to move freely, like speeches, like sounds, like nature sounds, or silence, big silence, or different organic different organical music that allow you to step out a little bit of the traditional beat of the jazz. So both of the music are allowed in this modality, right? Okay, let's continue. We can talk about the modern jazz right now. And the modern jazz is, I guess, the mother of the jazz, is known also as the jazz pop. It's applied the upbeat and the modern rhythms. It's also characterized by its dynamism and energy and cheerful attitude, which is like kind of being happy all the time, trying to like bring everybody up and share the energy with the audience and the judges and everybody. And that's like the energy of the modern jazz. You can use commercial music, you can use like 80s music, and every kind of music that has a beat, like has an upbeat, which comes from funk to R&B to current pop and different songs. It is really, really wide, the kind of music that you can use into the modern jazz. But what keeps you in the modern jazz is not the music, but it's the dance. The dance has to be energy, has to be jumps, has to be leaps, has to be turns, has to be a smile, you know, that kind of energy that really can be communicated by the dancer to the audience, like trying to be this strong dancer and precision and face and gestures. And that's what is going to be keeping you into the modern jazz modality. Especially when a dancer comes to the modern jazz performance, you can recognize that person, it's into the modern jazz because of its lines, because of its power, because of its gestures, and also music, and then costumes. What you can use in costumes in the modern jazz, it's also wider and is not limited to it. But if you have like 80s song, you can have all the costume related to the 80s. You can have your leotard and your warms and all these accessories that makes you like make and build a concept. All right, so you can have a really, really wide kind of costume that you can be using and you can be applied into the modern jazz modality. It is a style where today is played with a lot of flexibility and virtuosity, because dancers have grown so much that a modern jazz has bring into it technique, different movements such as big leaps, different jumps that have a lot of virtuosity into it. That is not considered acrobatics, but dance acrobatics, which is really good. And those are like really characteristical of the modern jazz technique. Yeah, that's gonna be it. I don't know, Sandra, if you would like to say anything else about it, or we can continue with the next slide.
No, I think it's been very clear that actually, well, the energy and actually the let's say sassiness that also normally comes with these choreographies. So I think it's very clear. If not, in the comments you can ask. We'll be there to help clarify any other doubts or details that maybe won't come up. But we still have a lot to go, so don't worry.
All right.
Now let's move on to other details about the shoes that we're going to wear. Luis Miguel told us a little bit about how the energy and what it is that also the shoes are going to be a part of what the judges were going to be looking for, and it's part of the wardrobe, the costume, not only the costume per se, but also everything else that goes with it, and it's going to help also the lines and the energy and the movements to be more clear and to help give a light on what modality and help it to have a more clear view of this modality. So the shoes that we're going to be wearing in jazz, well, normally there are jazz shoes, but we can play a little bit with the styles of dance shoes because we have jazz sneakers, we have half soles, we have jazz character shoes. So depending on the style of jazz, we're going to see that you can influence or change a little bit on these the shoes that we're going to be wearing. So for modern that we were talking, we can use jazz tennis shoes or sneakers. We can also use normal jazz slippers. For contemporary jazz, we can be barefoot. We can use half soles. We can use jazz slippers as well. We won't use jazz sneakers because it won't let you have the feel with the floor. It doesn't have the lines that we're going to be looking for. In lyrical jazz, you can be barefoot, ballet slippers, jazz slippers. So it's going to help the line. It's going to help to tell and to be able to see the fluidity of the movement, and the lines as well. In theatrical jazz, we're going to see you can use jazz slippers, or depending on the style of the theatrical jazz, you can maybe use heels, jazz with heels that are character shoes for jazz. And in the open jazz, well, it depends on what styles of jazz you are going to put in your performance. Well, you can be a little more creative with the shoes as well. They should be dance shoes, so we can see the lines, the points. We're not going to be expecting to see normal sneakers, but dance sneakers if you choose to use sneakers in your performance. Gymnastic or choreographic or acrobatic elements. Maximum 4 acrobatic or gymnastic elements in jazz, an exception to theatrical jazz that will be maximum 2 acrobatic or gymnastic elements. And in some elements, we talked about in our last workshop, the rules workshop, a little bit about the originality and creativity of the choreographies. And we were talking about some choreographies in some styles may be highly inspired in other choreographies already existing. Theatrical jazz is one of those exceptions because we have a very large influence of Broadway shows. So if you choose to do and use one of these Broadway songs and it's your desire to create a new choreography, go ahead. Creativity is always welcome. But if you choose to use parts of the original choreography, as long as it's an inspiration and you do not go over 45% of this original choreography, you can take it into your performance without it being actually, say, a copy or having a problem in your scores for this being. You don't always have to use Broadway musical music. You can use the style of music as well, because we have a lot of artists that use this style of music and the music is not part of any musical. Let's say Frank Sinatra uses a lot of styles that we can use easily in Broadway, not being the only artist. I'm just giving it like let's say a reference. So you don't think you have to do a musical that is in Broadway, because you can create your own musical, your own jazz, theater jazz with the style of music. We also have music that has that style that has been modernized as long as we keep the lines and every other detail that Luis Miguel shared with us. Well, it's up to you, your creativity. What Luis Miguel and what we're sharing with you are some tips, some insights that might help and guide you, but they're those guidelines that will be very important for you to define and clear your style. So that's why, let's say, we are giving some examples. They're not the only thing you can do, but they are just tips and guidelines that can maybe give a broader view of it. Now, let's move on to our levels. We talked about this our last workshop, that we have different levels depending on the experience of the dancer and depending on what his view and his, let's say, future in dance he pretends to be right in that moment. We have our new all dancers, we have our student dancers, pre-professional and professional. And we have our open levels that will combine two or more of these levels. For example, open student, we have new all dancers and student dancers in the same choreography. We have open pro, that we have pre-professional dancers and professional dancers sharing the stage and the performance. And we have our open level, that's a new level that's open all levels and all ages, where we can find new all dancers with even professional dancers on stage if you wish to, let's say, do this in your performance for some reason. Now, we have levels for everybody, and depending on the level of the dancer will be the expectations and the view of the dancers by the judges. We're not going to be expecting the same prowess as from a professional dancer, from a new all dancer, and not from a new all dancer from a student. You can find in our organic code that you will see that we have some specifications for new all dancers, because a lot of questions come up. How do I know if my dancer is a new all dancer or just a beginner dancer? Or because we can have students that can be beginners, intermediate, or advanced inside student level. The idea is for everybody to get to advanced level. But new all dancers will be these dancers that they're just starting out in dance and they're the minimum of their body in general. So we're not going to see very complex movements or technical movements in the choreography. We're going to see if they are turning at all, simple turns. If they're doing some acrobatic elements, we're going to see simple acrobatic elements with the use of both hands on the floor, with the use of all the body on the floor if it's like a roll. And we're going to look for those elements that keep it in the level that they should be, because they are just beginning to dominate their body and their movement. So if you're going to do jumps, simple jumps, not wide open jumps that will completely look for an extension of the legs and flexibility. So these dancers can have the opportunity to compete in equal circumstances with other dancers that are in that same level as beginners as they are. Students can have more simple choreographies if you wish, or have more complex choreographies. When you're in a student open that you mix both, well, there you can be a little more open with the elements that they are trying, but those are like basic elements, so you know which level you should, your performer should be, let's say, registered or signed up for. The view that they're going to be looking for, Luis Miguel is going to give us a little more, let's say, a broader look on what kind of little details may be part of the influence or that they will be expecting of these dancers, and what you can do to obviously improve in their performance for their level. So, Luis Miguel.
Yes, of course. Sandra said earlier, what you can expect, for example, from new dancers are completely different for you, what you can expect from a professional dancer. So let's say, for example, if you are a new dancer, it depends on two things. For example, age is one of the most important things that you have in mind, because when you are like new dancer, but you are also a child, it's expected for you that you can just go into stage and have fun and remember your choreography, which is expected to be good. But most of the time, the technique and the like kind of complexity level movements are not expected to be executed in a really good way. Maybe if you're making a turn, if it's just a single turn is fine, and it's expected not to be perfect, but a little fall, it's, you know, common. Remembering your choreography as a child, it's a really challenge. So for a new dancer, it's as important as being new, as important to be just a child, you know? So having fun, expression, smile, that's expected. Because even if you're new or professional, those kind of expressions and having fun, and you know, it's a competition and you're here giving all of you. So that's expected, even if you are a new dancer. But let's say if you are a new dancer, but you are like older a little bit, it's expected for you to try to be challenged by the choreography. Not just say that you were a new dancer and everything's gonna be like kind of easy making just because you were new. No. You can just make yourself up. Out of all right, it's everything all right?
Now it's all right. We had lost you for a minute there. I wasn't sure if it was me, but now we hear you perfectly. We were in the challenging of our new all dancers class.
Yeah, just to finish that, even if you're an older new dancer, it's expected for you to be challenged by the choreography, and most of the time to be happy about it and try to be like enjoying it, right? It's different when you're a student, because if you're a student, you are expected to be taking class. So the movements are expected to be a lot cleaner, the transitions a lot softer, the turns a little bit better. If you're turning using your releve, it's expected. If you're turning your spot, it's expected. Even if it's not perfect, the movement, it's expected to be like in the process, in the way to make it happen, you know? As Sandra said a little bit earlier, you can have students that are like beginner and intermediate and advanced students. So it's a really wide place to be. But what really characterizes a student level is the middle. You are in the middle zone, right? You cannot have, if you have like, let's say 2 pirouettes, if you try to make the third, it's gonna be hard, so hard and challenge, but different from professionals that you have to make multiple turns. Perfect, right? But let's keep professional there for a minute. It was just to make a point. Students, you have to, you are expected to extend your knees, point your feet. If you are doing battements, your extensions of the leg, not only on the flexibility, but the comprehension of the movement. You are expected to be knowing what you're doing. If you are a new dancer and you just raise your leg, okay. But if you are a student and you're raising your leg up, you have to be knowing if you're doing développés, you have to be knowing if you are doing battements, you have to be knowing if you are doing en front, à la seconde or derrière, those positions, respecting the positions, that it's a student level. It doesn't have to be perfect either, but it has to be in the process, as I said before. You know, the student already knows his body or her body in order to perform different technique elements. So if they're not perfect yet, it's okay. That's why it's in the student level. But it is expected to be executed in a good way, in a good way. Different from professional. If you are a professional dancer, it's expected to be having a lot of training in your body. It's expected to be very clean. It's expected to be really, really on time, on the music, on beat, that you cannot miss a beat of the music. It's expected for you to have multiple turns, complexity movements that are not like specified, but you can create new movements from your personal skills as a dancer. Let's say if you are really flexible, you're expected to use the flexibility in a different way from a student or from a new dancer will do. If they are raising a leg and a battement, it's okay. But if a professional dancer is doing a battement, it's expected to be doing something else, because for that, it's the difference. That's what it's gonna be, the difference between the professional and the student and new dancer. The professional has to be a person that goes even further, that what is the dance, that what is the technique, that is challenging not only the body, but the technique, and trying to push for the movement and get absolutely out of what the average dancer can do. The professional dancer is expected to be clean, to have a really good concept of what he's doing, to be in modality, to distinguish what the dance it's performing in, not only technique, but character, and the expression of the face and body has to be connected, really, really connected to what it's doing, and movement, not only in this virtuosity movements, but also the soft movements, or say the transition movements that most of the people don't pay attention to it. A professional dancer should. So everything should be connected in a natural way, and everything should be, it is expected to be fluent and to be executed in a very clean way. So I guess that is what you can expect from all the levels on the All Dance International Code, and that's what you can do for recognize which level your students are in.
Thank you very much, Luis Miguel. Hope that widens a little bit your view, and keep that in mind, so the dancers will have actually a very great experience, and this experience will help them grow as dancers. Okay, so let's move on to some questions that come up very often. Our scoring method. Our scoring method is the same for every one of our techniques and modalities, but it is in accordance to the elements of each one of these techniques and modalities. So our general grading and scoring method is based on 3 different judges that will be, let's say, evaluating each performance or choreography. Our first judge is our modality judge. He has a maximum of 70 points. Of 100 points, that would be the maximum. And we have our complementary judge that gives the other 30 points of those 100 points. That could be our maximum score. We have our third judge, that is our deductions judge. This judge is there looking to see that every one of our rules is obeyed, that every one of the dancers has the same, the characteristics, and are all obeying to our organic code for it to be a fair competition for everybody. And some elements that are part of what we've been talking about of each category and modality. So let's move and see which one of these are the specific elements that these judges are looking for, and how many points does that specific element or let's say view is going to give them. So for that, we're going to use a ranking. So these ranking scores will go from average, that is what is expected, what Luis Miguel was talking about, that is what is expected, that's the average score. We can always go above that average and go over what is expected. We can always be more creative, have a way better technique than it's supposed to, and get a little bit more elements in each one of the elements that we're going to see. And we can go below average. Still have to work a little bit more on that specific criteria, because we're going to have different criteria, and each criteria is going to have its own score. So saying that being said, let's move on to see what are the specific criteria that the modality judge is going to be looking for. So he's going to be looking for technique. In the specific technique, he's going to look, or she is going to look, that it's the correct modality, that it obeys to all those little details that Luis Miguel told us about earlier in each one of the jazzes. Does it obey those characteristics, those specific elements in your modality? And the technical level with he or she or the dancers in general are executing this category and this choreography per se. So those elements is going to be very important. That's why Luis Miguel tried to explain very well, and it should be very clear, because if it is absolutely not in the correct modality, meaning that it should be in another one. Not that it has some elements that are not there yet, because that can happen as well, but actually you say, no, that choreography is not a lyrical jazz. That is a modern jazz. So that would be an incorrect modality. So that would have a deduction, even though it will have a low score. So that's why it's very, very important for us to have it very clear that you know which category you should be actually enrolled in. Now, execution. In the execution, what are we going to be looking for? The synchronization, especially and only when it's more than 2 dancers, 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever, duets, trios, small groups, large groups. We saw all that the first workshop, so if you need to know a little bit more about that, go back to our rules, regulations, so you can find out all about our levels, or go to our organic code. So the synchronization will be 5 points, and the skills with these dancers are executing the elements in their choreography. And when it's just one dancer, well, we won't have synchronization. So the skills, instead of having 5 points, will have 10 points. So that will be like a little change when they're solos. The difficulty. How difficult are the elements inside the choreography? Those difficult elements, those extraordinary elements. Not meaning they have to do acrobatic elements, but per se in the technique. The turns, and let's say the speed what they're executing, the jumps, all those difficult elements that make a choreography challenging for these dancers. So what are the challenges they are going to face inside the performance according to their level and according to, obviously, the modality that they're in. For example, let's say in theater jazz. The difficulty in theater jazz normally is different from a contemporary jazz. Contemporary jazz has a lot of jumps, has a lot of elements on the floor. In theater jazz, when it's a group, one of the difficult elements is the synchronization, because it should be very precise, it should be very expressive. But we're not expecting to do a whole lot of elements that are very, let's say, hard in let's say, for example, gymnastic elements. You can only do 2 if you wish to put some. Turns normally aren't a lot of fouettes, because sometimes the shoes don't allow it. So they'll be more simple turns sometimes, but they do have a little different elements that will make it difficult for the dancers. The synchronization, the speed, the formations, that'll make the choreography a lot harder, and according, obviously, to the style of jazz. So that gives a little bit of view on that. I don't know if Luis Miguel has something to add to these specific criteria.
Yes. I would like to compliment what you were just saying, that, for example, in modern jazz, speed is one of the difficulty elements you should be taking on, because not only acrobatics are difficult, it is just something, but it is not limited to it. If you're dancing, let's say, modern jazz, and the beat of the song, it's super fast, and you're trying to achieve different positions in the same speed as the music is going, it's gonna be hard, and it's gonna be hard to be clean on that positions, and it's gonna be hard to get on time. So that's gonna be considered a difficulty element on that choreography. For example, if you're dancing lyrical jazz, transitions are always gonna be a hard part of the choreography, because in lyrical jazz, you're going to be trying to be dancing clean, and you're going to be trying to achieve movements that are really connected into the classical technique. So the transitions are going to be soft, and transitions are going to be something really hard to achieve. So if you're doing lyrical jazz, just having that in mind, it's gonna put you into a perspective, which is the hardness of the movement is not always trying to do something that it's really challenging for the body, just trying to be something that is also challenging choreographically. And in simple movements, there is also a difficulty level within. I mean, you can also find difficulty in slowly movements, and you can also have difficulty in transition movements. And it is not only limited to acrobatics and hard jumps and how many turns you can do. It is part of the difficulty of the technique, but it's not limited to it. So as you said, it's really, really important to have in mind what kind of dance you're doing, whether it's lyrical, contemporary, modern jazz, or precision in theatrical jazz, or I don't know, let's say, but that is the point.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yes, and you were talking about also the slow movements, the control of those movements, and for it to be clear, that is a difficulty by itself. Not only speed, well, high speed. Low speed can also be a very challenging thing to achieve for the dancers and for the technique per se. So yeah, very, very true. Now we also have the musicality that is going to be observed. The musicality is the interpretation of that music and that beat by the dancer, but the music as well. Music is part important of what music we choose to use. If we're going to do a mix of the music, the quality and how we do that mix, if we choose to do it. If we're going to make a addition to the music, and we're going to make it shorter that we normally do, because we have 2.5, 2 minutes, 3.5 tops when it's a large group. So normally we do have to adjust the music. So how are we adjusting it, and how is it perceived? And is it, well, adequate for the category and modality we choose to interpret? Choreography, the costume. The costume is going to be one of the things that's important. Does it actually help to tell the story? Is it according to the category? Is it according to what you are trying to say through your movement? Does it actually have some element that is going to be helping the choreography, or just wear any clothes that you have home, or what are you wearing on your performance? Complexity. The choreography has two ways of being complex. One, the difficulty, which we already talked about, and the complexity of the choreography per se. Changing of levels, if it's a group, how many, how you're moving, how you're working the space. So the choreography has to be also creative, and the complexity of this choreography is going to be, let's say, evaluated here. And the creativity that we were talking about, the idea, and one of the elements of creativity is, as we were saying, knowledge, but creativity is going to be the fuel for this. The knowledge is going to be the fuel for this creativity, and this creativity is going to be the part that we are going to see. How creative are you using all these elements that we are talking about in your performance and your choreography? And entertainment is going to be an important part of how is the dancer connecting. Is he or she enjoying their performance? Are they connecting with the audience? Is it a fun performance? Are you actually having that connection, not only an expression, but having the audience want to see more? What's going to happen? Surprise, anything is. Actually, that's your creativity, how it's going to apply. But it should be obviously entertaining for everybody to watch. And well, that's part of the interpretation of the dancer as well. So Luis Miguel, if you have something you want to complete or have here to say.
Yeah, well, in the choreography part, where you talk about the transitions, the movement of the people, the fragmentation of the space of the scenario, sharing the center, using different elements, choreography elements such as formations, diagonals, making groups, different groups, the showman or showwoman, everything that comes into the choreography movement of the people, not the dancer just by the dance itself, but how does the dancer or the dancers move in the space. And that's something that is not all the time for the dancer, but for the choreographer. So you can have different tools to move the people, to make groups, to achieve something special, or to make the people, the audience, focus on something you're trying to do, or something special a single dancer can do while the group or while the other people are doing something else. Everything that comes into that choreography item, it is also considered for the choreographer, not only for the dancer, but for the choreographer.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And of course, very, very true. Now, speaking of creativity, we have an element that's very important. That creativity has to respect intellectual property. That's what we were talking about earlier in theater jazz. This intellectual property is looking to actually protect all of you choreographers, all our work and all of the effort you go in. Well, we want our work to be respected, and we should respect others' work as well. So if you use another piece for inspiration, well, that's one thing. But when we're copying a choreography that other people took the time and had all these creative elements in their process, well, then we're not being very creative, and we're not respecting that intellectual property that does not belong to us. That choreography does not belong to us. So if we do so, and remember, in theater jazz, it could be up to 45%, but most of the choreography should be our own. But in other categories and other styles of jazz, does not apply. So if you copy partially the choreography or the whole choreography, it will have a negative effect on your score. Not only in creativity, but you will also have a deduction. We're going to talk a little bit about deductions a little later, but this is one of the deductions that will apply and that the modality judge is actually looking for in your performances. So just help yourself out, be creative, use other choreographers, other information for inspiration, but do your own thing. Be your own, be unique, and show all that personality that you have and your dancers have on your performance. So that would be it for our modality. Now, I told you we have another judge, our complementary judge. Now, this judge is going to be looking for other criteria that is going to also give life and going to shine on your performance. Now, the stage. The use of the stage, what are they looking for and how you use the stage? The space, how are you using the space? Not if you're just filling the space, because if we have 40 dancers, well, we're gonna use the whole space, but how are you actually moving through the space? Are you staying in one place? Are you going front, back, diagonals, using the whole stage? Formation. If the dancers are still the whole time, are they changing formations? Are those formations clear? Okay? When it's just one dancer, well, it's not going to have formations. He's going to only use the space. So the space will have have a higher score. Instead of being 1.5, it will be 3.5 because it takes on formations plus space, because formations, well, we can't see in just one dance. Levels. How are you using the levels? High, middle level, or low level in your performance? How are you using those levels according to the style of jazz, in this case, that you choose to portray? In contemporary jazz, for example, we're going to look for more use of the low level than some other styles of jazz that doesn't use so much a low level or a ground level on your performance. The transitions. This is a very important element. How are we passing and how are we doing those changes of formation, of those levels, of the space? How are we changing from one place to the other, one place to the other, and one step to the other? So those transitions should be clear and should be very precise for the dancers and obviously for the public and the judges that are looking at the choreography. And in image, we will be looking at the creativity of the image. When we say creativity, we're looking at that everything that he or she is using in the performance has relation and direct, let's say, thing with the story, the character, with the type of jazz that they're going to use. So how are you using those elements to help tell your story and help tell what it is you're portraying on stage? Accessories. The use of accessories, if you choose to use them, how are they supporting and how are they contributing to that as well? On stage, and in most cases now, we are obliged by law in most countries to use a mask or some elements that help protect. So those face masks, when we are asked and when we have to use them, will be considered part of an accessory. So it should also have be part of the costume. So that will be considered an accessory. The makeup. If you have obviously a mask, we're only going to see part of the makeup, but that will be part of what we are looking for. How does the makeup complete your outfit? How does it actually help you express? Doesn't matter if you're a female or a male dancer. We're on stage, we have lights, and we should be highlighting our facial expression or faction, or maybe a character that you are trying to portray. So the makeup is going to be part of all your complete image, same as your hairdo, and everything is going to be part of that next one, that's visual aesthetic. So does one thing have to do with the other? Do I have a makeup, let's say, do I have a makeup that does not go according to my wardrobe or according to my story? So how does the visual aesthetic of all of my image go with the story, go with the choreography, and go one with the other? So that has to be a language that goes between them, and that is helping that story and helping have clear language of what category, what modality you are using and what you're presenting. So that would be like the other criteria that the complimentary judge is going to be looking for. Here, I don't know if Luis Miguel has something that you want to tell them as well and complete some information that may be incomplete.
Yes. I would like to say something about the transitions. There is two kinds of transitions. The first is a dancer transitions, and the second is the choreography transitions. When you have a dancer transitions, the dancing transitions, it's how you connect one step to the other, and how are you going to be fluent in movements, not separating the movements from one to another, but just how are you connecting the steps of your choreography. And then the second one is the transitions of the choreography. How are you moving in the space? How your formations are connected? How are you using the space? And how are you getting there? For example, are you walking, or are you moving, or are you dancing? In those transitions of the space, how are you, let's say, how are you approaching the distance between point A and point B? Is it just walking? Is it just movement or is it dancing? And it's really, really important difference, because when you're alone and you're doing, let's say, a soloist, it's like kind of saying easier because you are on your own. But if you are in a group and you have to move a whole group, how is the group moving? I'm sorry. How's the whole group moving? Is it just hiding behind the other, or is it just a clear transition? And I would like to say that in order to make those differences, because I guess it's important. I take it important on it. So I hope it really helps you to put the choreography into the next level.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you very much. That is very important as well to have in mind and to take very care of. So those will be the concepts that complementary judge and modality judge will be looking for, and will be scoring according to the points that each one has. So they don't have the same score, but you can find what is the maximum score and how that is going to affect, obviously, your overall score at the end. Now, in the complementary judge, he is also looking for the performance projection, the gestuality. The gestuality when we have a mask is going to be depending on a lot more on your facial, your eyes, on your body language, because we are not going to have our mouth. That is one of the things that we rely on sometimes, that I actually think that is one of the positive things that the pandemic has brought to dance. When it has made us use a mask, it makes us be more clear with our actually how we are telling with our body and other elements the story. We don't have just a smile. We have to smile with our body. So that's I think that's going to be a challenge, but it also have a very, very positive effect on dance overall. The authenticity of the character. When we talk about authenticity, that has a lot of implications. Are the movements according to the modality? So, well, are we telling the story? Is it clear the character we're portraying? Not just a character, maybe a fiction character, but if I'm telling a sad story, is my character going along with that sad story I'm telling? Is he portraying it? The force of the movement, that would be the preciseness. If it's a fluid movement, is it fluid? Do I see the clarity in the movement? If it's a sharp movement, is it sharp and is it precise? If it's let's say a fast movement, how clear is it? So that is the clarity of the movement in the performance. And the interpretation would be a little more overall of all these elements, how they come together, and how I interpret using all of these elements, the character, the story, and my performance, or with the kids' performance on stage. And we have another criteria, that's public response. This one is actually a part of the criteria that the judge actually is not judging, but you as a public, as a supporter, as a fan, as a teacher, as a parent, can go and support the dancers. How? Online, being there in the public, with the applauses, with the support, with also the support when we're to Zoom online, with the chat, be there active, supporting the dancers, because this is one of the elements that actually helps the dancer feel more confident on stage and have all that actually energy. That is one of the things that the stage brings us, that is all that energy, and it's also connected by the public that are always there supporting. So here is your way to help the dancers, not only with that support, but also in the support with the actual score. So those are the elements. Here in performance projection is very important to be according also to the modality. So let's hear if Luis Miguel has something that he wants to add to this specific criteria.
Yes, I would like to say that most of the time the interpretation, it's really connected to the concept of the choreography and the modality of jazz that you are dancing in. For example, interpretation in lyrical jazz, it's one of the major items that you have to take care. Let's say in contemporary jazz, interpretation also it's gonna be keeping you in that modality. So it really, it's important for you to interpretate the dance that you are in. If your interpretation is strong, and if you have this strong energy, then your modality should be, it is not limited to it, but it should be, it's expected to be something that the concept of the full concept of the choreography and the story allow you to be a strong dancer. But if your interpretation is soft and if your interpretation is light, then the whole concept of the choreography should be light and should be in the same way, you know, and that it's going to be helping you stay on modality, or it's going to be trying to push you away from it. So it's really important to have this interpretation in mind when you are also choreographing your piece.
Very good. Yes, of course it is. That is one of the special elements that actually has a very large impact in the different styles of jazz, because they share the same jazz technique. So when we use that jazz technique, how we use it, how we interpret it is one of the basic elements that's going to change. Obviously supported by the music we choose, the cost of everything has an effect, but the interpretation is one of those very important elements. So yes, thank you very much, Luis Miguel. Now, remember I told you there's a third judge. Now here, the third judge is our deductions judge. These deductions are applied equally to all of our categories, all our techniques, and some of them are very specific for each technique, and some of them are very general. We talked about them and all of them a little more in detail in our first workshop that you can find on YouTube. If you didn't watch it, you can go back and watch it. And here I'm going to give an overall element of each one, and in the couple that are very specific for jazz or for the categories we're talking about, well, maybe stop a little bit there so it's clear. Now, the first one, that's wrong modality, is one of the ones that is specific to each modality. Because here, we're talking about the choreographies that don't belong to that category per se. So let's say we have a jazz performance that is, let's say, you signed up for modern jazz. But when the judge sees the choreography, it's not just modern jazz. Let's say it has elements of modern jazz, but it also has, let's say, a very lyrical music, a lot of soft movements. So it kind of has like more a lyrical feel. It might just have a little bit of elements of lyrical, so it won't have a deduction. It probably will have a lower note in modality. But when it completely goes to the other side and it's not modern, it's not there, it's a contemporary jazz, it's a lyrical jazz, or maybe it's not even a jazz, it's a commercial dance choreography. That's why it's also very important to see the workshops of the other techniques that sometimes go aligned with some elements of jazz and take jazz as inspiration in some elements. So we have to have clear how much percentage of that style we're using. As Luis Miguel said, it should be in mixes. When we're in all jazz open, it should be at least 30% of each one of the styles. And when we are just presenting one of the styles, well, it should be at least more than 80% of the style, so it's there. I recommend more than 90%, so it's very, very clear. But if it's complete wrong modality, it will have a deduction. Wrong division. The division, we're talking about the ages. So my dancers are in the correct ages. They are dancing with the dancers that in their same age range. This is very important because this is one of the elements that makes it fair for the dancers who they're going up against. So that we have levels for each age group, so they have the opportunity to have a fair share and a fair performance in the competition. Wrong level. We talked a little bit about the levels. Remember, new all dancers, student, open, pre-professional, professional dancers. We have the opportunity for them to dance together, but in the level they should be. Because it's not fair for, let's say, a new all dancer to have to go up against a student dancer that probably has been dancing more than they have. We don't have any elements to know how long this dancer has been in classes. We just see their performance. And part of their performance, that's why we put some elements and guidelines as the technical levels they should be using for new all dancers to help shine a little bit light on that and make it fair for the new all dancers to be able to enjoy their performance and have a very well experience that helps them grow as artists. But the student dancers also have that element that they compete against student dancers, and there's no pre-professional dancers dancing against them or professional dancers. So it's very important that the dancers have the equal characteristics and equal level when they're competing against another dancer. Late arrival on stage. Part of being a professional dancer and part of that process of becoming a professional dancer, because we are learning how to be professional dancers since day one, since we go into the classroom, since we go on stage. So how are we helping these dancers take dance seriously and have the discipline that dance implies and is one of the strong elements that dance gives us as our development as human beings. So be there on time, be early, be there so you can warm up, so you have your makeup, and be backstage when you're supposed to. Be there on time. Sometimes the event goes a little bit early. Sometimes it goes straight on time, so be there early. So if you're next, you can be on stage and don't have any problem with that. False routine start, part of the discipline. If I'm on stage and I'm ready, they put the music, if I move, I just started my choreography. If it's not my music, if it started halfway, I don't know, anything, teach the dancers not to move. It's not my music, I don't move. If I move, I started my performance, okay? Forbidden elements. The forbidden elements, we went a little more in detail in our first workshop, but the forbidden elements will be the elements that make the stage, let's say, not safe for the dancer after me or even for the dancer on stage. For example, water, dust, elements that can have grease that will make the stage slippery or make it just unsafe to dance. Excessive use of acrobatic or gymnastic elements. We talked about that. Jazz can use maximum 4, theater jazz maximum 2. If I use more than that, well, then I will be maybe crossing even a line to go into acro dance. That we're going to talk about that on another one of our workshops. But it will have even a deduction for use of too many acrobatic elements. So if you love acrobatic elements and want to fill your choreography, okay, stay tuned. We can watch the acro dance category. That would be probably best for this dance. Makeup, body paint, inappropriate or obscene or offensive clothing. Keep the costume according to age range and according, obviously, to the choreography and to the performance you are using. Body paint is not allowed because it can dirty the floor for the next dancers, for their costume, for everything, even make it slippery. And, well, sometimes body paint is used without costumes, so it is not allowed on the competition stage. Very beautiful is an artistic thing, and it's very beautiful, but not for this family space. Poorly executed elements. Here, what Luis Miguel was talking to us about on the levels, what they're expecting, but we're always looking for correctly executed technical levels. So when we have a battement and our legs are not clear, our knees are bent, our toes are, or our feet are, let's say, loose, our toes are pointed and they should be, well, that is going to affect a little bit the score and can have a negative effect. So that's why the idea is to always work hard, always be technically very clean. So the performance has a better, obviously, score. Tripping or falling. When we have a stumble, when we trip, when we almost fail a movement, but we could save it and finish it, but maybe with a stumble, it will have zero point 0.5 of deduction. But when I fall completely off the movement, I fall completely or on the floor or just on the movement and you couldn't save it, well, then we'll have a 1-point deduction. As you see on the side, we can see the values of each one of the deductions. The judge does not choose, for example, forbidden element, it's not from 1 to 5, it's 5. The judge does not choose how much he wants to put, but he is already obliged of how much of that specific element he, in, let's say, error that's in the choreography, how much that's going to affect it. So you already know how big, let's say, a mistake that would be to make in each one of these elements. This is something that we can work on, we can try to perfect, but it might happen on stage and it's natural, it happens to everybody, but it will be a doubt of course. Throwing elements to the public. Let's say we use a hat. If we use a hat and we take it off on stage, we can put it on the floor, we can put it backstage, we can put it to the side, but we can't throw it on the front of the stage or to the public. That goes for any element whatsoever. And it will have a deduction of 3 points each time. So it's 5 dancers throwing their hat to the public. It will be 5 times 3, 15 points. So just have that in mind. If you're here listening, well, obviously you're going to keep it in mind, so it's not going to be a problem there. So don't throw any item at the public. Inappropriate language or music. It's very important for a competitive space and to be, and for us as a family event, that everybody is watching from all around the world, because All Dance International, we are all around the world. So every culture, every race, every gender, everybody should feel respected. And part of that respect also comes from the music and the language and movements I choose to use in this performance. So the lyrics on the music should not have offensive content, should not have explicit sexual content. It should be all age range, family content, and should be very respectful for everybody, race, gender, religion, every belief. And inappropriate movements will be movements, as I said before, respectful for all cultures and be according also to age, but should not be a sexualized movement. Independent of the age, should be kept in a sensual, at least in adults, but should be a content that is appropriate for all age range, all cultures, and everybody to watch. So no explicit sexual content on the choreography. If Luis Miguel has something to add, you can feel free to jump in, because I know we still have some more elements to go, but we are good on time. So if you have anything to add, be my guest.
Yes, actually, one thing about the acrobatic and virtuosity movements, on the modern jazz, there is a trend of the dancer, of the virtuoso dancer. And you have to be very careful with this because not all the time the risky movements that are considered acrobatic movements are adding into your choreography, because there need to be room for dance. And especially in modern jazz, there is a conception about the dancer that all the time needs to be doing virtuoso movements, whether it is acrobatic or not, whether it is legs, jumps, turns, long sequences of turnings. It consumes the time of the choreography, and at the end of the choreography, you didn't dance a lot. So you made a decision to make your choreography so hard and so filled with acrobatics and highly technique advanced movements that you didn't pay attention to the dance that was also important to make it part of your choreography. So especially in modern jazz, we see this a lot. And it's my invitation for everybody that it's trying to push your dance to the other level, not only to pay attention to the acrobatic and the hard, difficult level steps, but also to the dance, to how your technique is executed, how your dexterity on the simple steps are made, how you're slow and like freeze, let's not say freeze, let's say a pose, your poses are done. How do you make that simple dance movements part of your dance routine? And remember, most of the time, dance is really, really important in this jazz modality. In order to have more acrobatics, if you love it, go ahead and check the Acrodance creatives workshops, but pay attention to the dance percentage of your choreography, okay? That's the last thing I wanted to add in these deductions items, because I guess it's really important to have it in mind in order to have a good modality registration, okay? That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, of course. That is something very important. Some people, when they see that you have a limit of acrobatic elements, sometimes think they need to use acrobatic elements. And you just have the opportunity if you wish to, but you do not have to use them because each technique has difficult elements technically that you can use that is not just acrobatic. So yes, very, very helpful. Now, we also have the depth criteria that can have an effect on deduction. That could be accidents of falling or falls of the clothing. That would be the accessories we're using or the costume per se. Rehearse with the costume, rehearse with the accessories, because if they fall from my hand, from my head, from my costume, well, it will have a deduction. Well, it's 0.5, it's not going to actually be a very high impact, but every little point counts. So rehearse with that clothing and make the dancers acknowledge they have to put it on very well when they have to put something on. Damaged clothing or untidy clothing. This will be a part of your personal presentation. How is my hair? Well, not the way it's put up, but is it neatly put up? Do my underwear show? Do I have my shoelaces untied? Are we wearing the same accessories? Everything that makes the costume tidy and makes that personal presentation actually more professional and according to the dance, well, that will be part of here when it's case that it goes overboard. Choreography, inappropriate choreography for division. Keep your choreography age appropriate. That's it. Altisonance at the start or end of the routine or even in the middle. The choreography, the music that we should use should not imply the group name, the studio name, the school name, or be inciting the public to be aroused. So everybody has the same energy when they're watching. So these elements can have a negative effect. We want the dancers to win that energy, to have the representation, but not through these elements, but through their performance. Left elements on stage. Now, let's remember, for example, the hat we took off earlier in the choreography, we put it on the floor, didn't throw it at the public. Well, when we use that element and we put it on the floor, well, when we go out of stage, we should take it with us. If something fell, I didn't put it, but it fell, we should look what fell on our costume, on our accessories if we didn't notice. Pick it up and leave it. Try to leave the stage as we found it, safe for everybody to dance and as we would like to find it. So if something is put on stage or fallen on stage, well, we should take it with us as dancers. Use of scenery. Okay, so in the dance competition, it is very important for the dance, with all the elements talked about earlier, to tell the story, to have all the background, everything that we need in the choreography per se. Now, if we choose to use scenery, we would call it, if it's used correctly, we can use props. That means what we're using in the choreography is part of the choreography. So for example, I can use a chair as a prop, or I can turn a chair into scenery. So how is a chair a prop? When it is part of my choreography, when I use it at least in 30% of my performance, not just I go out on stage, sit on a chair, begin there, then stand up, never use the chair again, and then take it out. There it would be considered scenery. It's not part of my performance. Let's say we're doing a performance about let's say an astronaut. The astronaut, does it have a backing that I put stars, planets, but it's just there to make it look like they've gone in space? That would be scenery. We need to understand you're an astronaut by your costume, by your performance, by your energy, by the music, by everything else you're telling. So the choreography has to be its own personality. The elements that we use should be part of the choreography. Let's say he has a choreography that he uses a ball and it's a planet, and he puts it, brings it, jumps with it, over it, under it, gives it turns, uses it as a prop in the choreography, then that is okay. It's not considered scenery. Okay, let's see. Public obstruction of judgment. So here, we are trying to educate our public and our audience to be respectful and to be, well, obviously according to the dance. So when we are there, or the public is there, the idea is for them to support the dancers, to applaud, to scream, but in the correct manner and time. At the beginning, at the end, when it's in the middle, you can applaud, but we should be able to hear the music, not lose concentration for the dancers, so they should be able to listen also to their music so they can be on time, they can use the musicality, because if not, we're affecting the ability of the public and the judges to hear the music and the ability of the dancers to use the music. So it's very important for the public also to be educated as an educated dance public. Dropping off stage or getting off stage. When we get off stage as dancers, as performers, it should be in the manner that is intended in that specific stage. Sometimes it's in the curtains if we're on a theater. Sometimes it's stairs that are marked for up and down or to go on and off stage. Front of the stage, it's not meant to jump off the stage to generate effects. It's not meant to go off backstage if it's not marked as a space to enter or exit the stage. So use the marked entry and exit spots that are marked on each one of our stages. Routine time. We talked about that because routine time depends on what subdivision you guys are. If it's a solo, it's a duo, it's a trio, if it's a group, small group, large group. So you have a specific time. We all have the same time. So the conditions of the choreography is the same for everybody. So keep that in mind because it can turn into a very big deduction because it's 3 points for every 5 seconds. So very easy, just be according to the time, depending on your subdivision, and no problem there. Intellectual property, we talked about that a little bit earlier. So it would just be reflected here on the scores, but we already saw that in the modality category. Any regulation infringement can also have a negative effect and a deduction. So just use the rules, know them. Remember that knowledge is one of the best elements for our creative process. So that's why this knowledge is here for you guys to use in your advantage. And increase in unreported dancers. Let's say we have a choreography where we reported that we have 5 dancers, but then on stage there are 7 dancers. If you have 7 dancers, well, report the 7 dancers so you don't have any negative report on what you are on stage. Let's say one of those dancers maybe it couldn't get on stage on time because any personal thing arise and can't dance. Well, if it's less, let's say normally it will not have an effect, except if, for example, we're 4 dancers, that's a group, and one dancer doesn't show, then it wouldn't be a group, it would be a trio. So there it would have an effect because now we're not dancing against groups, but we should be dancing against trios. So it would be the only time that having less dancers would affect. So let's say it's a duo, but one didn't come, well then it's a solo. So it's not fair for the soloists have to go against duos or the duos have to go against solos. So that would be like the only time. So try to keep what you reported, what you actually put on your report to be what we see on stage for it to be fair for everybody. Because all of these elements are there in order for it to be fair, for it to be transparent, for it to be in equal conditions for every dancer and every performer when they are on stage and make it actually a very fair and growing environment. About these, I don't know if Luis Miguel has something to add.
No, I guess everything is very clear. I like it. I love it. We can continue with that. It's great.
Well, actually, those are all the elements that are going to be important, especially that you can use as a fuel to make your choreography not only better, but have a better result. So remember, all the knowledge is going to be the fuel for all of our creative process. So I want to thank especially everyone that is here because that means you want to grow and you are part of what we are looking for as dancers, as all dancers, and will obviously growing in the dance industry with us. I want to thank Luis Miguel for sharing all his knowledge, all his passion, and everything that he has learned across the years and that will make our experiences, well, very, very delightful on stage. So thank you very much, Luis Miguel, for all your time, your love, and your energy here and at our competitions and in all dance in general.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. And I want to thank all the people that are seeing this, are here in the workshop, and all the people that are going to be watching this on the YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, to be here, for paying attention, for the for trying to be informative dancer, trying to be a choreographer, a better choreographer. And I want to thank all the families for the support, to our dancers, to all the people that are trying to make this industry grow. And of course, I want to thank All Dance International for having me. And of course, Maria Fernanda, and for you, Sandra, thank you very much. I would love to be here every single time for you guys. So if you have any question, if you have anything that you would like to ask to me, I am full on service. So don't hesitate to contact and to ask all the questions you want. Just everything through All Dance International, and that's gonna be great. Thank you for all to being here, for having me, and see you around and our competition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Remember what he was saying, you have any questions, you have something you want in the comments that you are going to find on YouTube, you can leave the questions and we will be very, very glad to answer them. If anything we can help, we're here for that, for this experience to be a very, very good experience and to grow all together. So thank you, All Dance, for these opportunities. These are all our workshops that we're going to have. They are completely free. They're going to be also on the YouTube channel. I invite you to be live because then you can ask questions live. We can be in contact with you on real time and it will be part of the experience. But if not, you're watching this on YouTube, leave the comments and we'll be glad to respond and to help you out in any way we can. So remember, we have all of our workshops for you, specially designed. So I hope I'll see you very soon. Thank you, All Dance, for this initiative that is very important for the industry and the growth of the industry in general, especially in these times that it's been very, very challenging for everybody to keep on dancing, but we are still here passionate about what we do and not stopping at anything. So thank you very much for being here with us, and see you very soon here or live on our championship. Bye-bye.